Jiangmin squares up to the machine, taking a deep breath to focus. He delivers a solid strike to the center of the punching bag. The machine starts rolling through the numbers, processing the force of the blow. It finally settles on a score of 845, which clearly is not enough to satisfy him. His friend cheers for the result, clearly impressed by his performance. Jiangmin wonders if they really need to make this a daily ritual on the way home. But she insists that routines are what make an athlete before pulling out her phone for their next tradition. She starts pulling up a fortune-telling app, teasing him about his grumpy nature. The app gives him a reading, praising his intelligence but warning him to stop being so stubborn. It specifically highlights the color red as a source of incoming trouble for him. He jokes about skipping his favorite spicy meal, while the app claims yellow is his lucky color. Jiangmin questions if he should just grab a yellow keychain, mocking how far gone their reliance on AI has become. She gets defensive about the fortune, while he laughs off the idea that this is supposed to be science. Their conversation stops short when he spots something that catches his eye. A bright red sign for a new escape room-themed bizarre hotel sits right in front of them. The coincidence of the color red hits them both immediately. It's the exact omen the app just warned him about. She suggests they go inside to prove the whole fortune-telling thing is just superstitious nonsense. Jiangmin agrees to the challenge as long as they grab some food together afterward, and with that they sprint toward the entrance to test their luck. They step into the lobby of a premium escape room facility. The walls are lined with posters for different horror themes. A massive wall of Polaroids captures the faces of those who came before. A staff member confirms their consent form is processed. She takes a lantern and instructs the group to close their eyes and maintain that blind state until they reach the designated room. She guides them through the dark facility while explaining their scenario. The premise is simple. They have been hired as hotel staff. Their first stop is the break room to review the rulebook, but as they walk, the hallway seems to stretch on forever. Reaching the door, the staff member warns that the real game begins. Survival depends entirely on completing the missions ahead. One of them tries the handle, but it stays locked tight. The guide just smiles, watching them struggle with the entrance, leaving the player to wonder if the lock itself is the puzzle. He tries twisting the handle in different directions to no avail, and notices there is not even a keyhole to pick. Realizing this is not a standard key-based challenge, he focuses on the handle. The guide orders them to close their eyes again for the next part, and if following that rule is critical, he makes sure to keep them shut. The door finally clicks open, letting them cross the threshold, and the rule remains clear: eyes stay shut until they're inside. With the lock disengaged, the path into the room is officially cleared. They step through the frame together, staying focused on the objective, and find themselves standing in a narrow corridor lined with lockers. A quiet lounge area sits nearby, tucked away from the main hall, while further down the row, a medical locker stands out from the rest. The lockers are already labeled with their names, which raises a few questions, but Yujin spots the rulebook on a table and immediately checks for guidance, and he discovers a small, distinct yellow tag sitting among the gear. The tag clearly displays his name, matching the locker he just found. It's a strange coincidence, but he does not have much time to dwell on it. His partner keeps the mood light, insisting they study the rules carefully, and they review the tablet to confirm the protocols they were given. The rules are strict: follow orders, wear your name tag to survive, and avoid room 415 at all costs. Peeking out from the doorway, they survey the hallway to make sure the coast is clear. But the lighting in the corridor has shifted into an eerie, deep red. His partner finds the change alarming, but he just wants to stay focused. They locate the entrance to the staff break room, marked clearly on the door, and Yujin stands before the handle, ready to see what's waiting on the other side. The duo keeps moving deeper into the facility, brushing off the tension for now, but Yujin can't shake a weird feeling about their surroundings, noting a strange color shift. And they both start questioning the layout, wondering if the hallway is actually getting longer. Doubts start creeping in as they keep walking, suspecting they're being played for fools. Eventually, they reach a front desk, finding the place is set up like an old hotel. A single key hangs in the display, clearly labeled for room 205. Yujin realizes the game is more complex than expected, with the hotel setup acting as their guide. The group wonders about the actual missions, hoping for standard puzzles to solve. But the door suddenly creaks open, revealing a mysterious guest in a red coat. Surprised to see someone else, the duo realizes the guests might be the ones issuing tasks. The newcomer requests room 415 and the staff dutifully agrees to help. Yujin moves to the key rack, searching for the specific room number requested. Fingers scan the rows of keys, but the requested slot is conspicuously missing. Confusion sets in as the realization hits: room 415 simply does not exist. A dark, unsettling look crosses the guest's face, changing the atmosphere instantly. A warning from the rules flashes in Yujin's mind: never engage someone asking for that room. The duo suddenly realizes the grave danger they're in, but the guest has already snapped. An emergency signal blares, leaving them no choice but to drop everything and run. A massive blow crashes down, forcing them to scramble away before they're crushed. Yujin barely registers the chaos, just realizing they've walked straight into a death trap. The hand hits the floor, severed, but it's already dissolving into a dark, ink-like mass. The room is turning into a nightmare of shadows. His friend is panicking, asking if this is some kind of sick magic trick. The voice in his head cuts through the confusion, warning him not to rely on his own logic. It's clear this is no hallucination, so the only real option is finding the staff break room. They've got no choice but to make a run for it before the next strike comes. A figure standing in the dark demands to be guided to room 415. As the thing turns, the horror is complete, a mouth where its eyes should be. Eugene realizes they're being hunted by something that does not follow the laws of nature. He grabs his friend and starts sprinting, putting distance between them and the creature. The monster is relentless, asking for directions while closing the gap with terrifying speed. It does not need to see them to track them. The blade in its hand says it's ready to kill. Stopping to look back is a death sentence, but the curiosity of what's chasing them is overwhelming. The creature lunges with the cleaver, closing the distance in a single, unnatural motion. Panic takes over as they realize the thing is laughing, enjoying the hunt. Sweat is blinding him now, every breath feeling like a sharp burn in his lungs. Adrenaline is the only thing keeping his heart beating as they push through the hallway. He glances back, seeing the red-jacketed monster closing in with the weapon raised. It's gaining ground, and at this rate they are not going to make it to the room alive. The attacker swings, but she barely manages to dodge the blade. It slams into the wall behind them, missing its target by inches. He's still clutching the kid, forcing them both to the floor to escape the strike. Panic is setting in, and they realize there's no way to hold off this relentless killer. The realization hits hard, this fight is far from over. They spot a door nearby and scramble toward the staff room. Sprinting for their lives, they make a desperate break for the entrance. They reach the door, gasping for breath while the danger closes in behind them. With no time to spare, they grab the handle. The lock clicks open under their frantic grip. They dive inside, narrowly avoiding the blade that carves through the air behind them. He watches the door, waiting to see if it holds. Outside, their pursuer is not letting up, weapon raised and ready for another round. A hand slams against the door, pinning it shut from the other side. The impact shakes the frame as the killer strikes with full force. Fingers desperately grip the handle to keep the barricade from failing. Another massive blow crashes against the wood, nearly breaking through. The blade pierces the door, missing them by a hair's breadth. They collapse to the floor, cornered and exhausted as the barrier finally starts to give. There is no more room to run, and they both know the end is right outside that door. The killer looms right over them, blades ready to end the chase for good. Panic hits, and they can only think of the people they've already lost. Their companion pulls them down into a desperate embrace on the floor. There's no room for argument, so they just hold on tight. A firm grip keeps them held close as the assurance comes again. They are huddled on the ground, terrified of what's waiting just outside that door. The figure in the red coat stands perfectly still, blocking the exit. Every second of silence makes the tension in the hallway unbearable. Then the monster lets out a shriek that echoes through the entire wing. The sheer shock of that sound leaves them paralyzed. One of them is ready to bolt, desperate to find a way out. But their partner refuses to move, insisting they are safe right where they are. Confusion sets in, and they start to wonder if the carnage has broken their mind. A finger points toward the doorway, showing how the killer is trapped by invisible bounds. They shift their position, testing the limits of their sanctuary. The killer stares from the threshold, unable to cross the line. Those boots stay planted exactly at the edge of the room. It finally clicks, though the reason remains a terrifying mystery. They are safe because the killer can't enter the staff break room. The rules written on the wall confirm that this restricted space is their only salvation. The door remains barred to anyone without an official staff name tag. Confused by these sudden restrictions, they scramble to process the situation. A quick plea to be set down follows as the constant movement is taking its toll. They collapse on the floor together, trying to catch their breath after the narrow escape. The injury is severe, with the limb darkening and showing no signs of improvement. Tears well up as the reality of their situation starts to sink in. Desperation takes hold while they try to figure out why this is happening to them. Tensions flare as one of them questions how the other can remain so calm despite the trauma. The bleeding has to stop, and leaving the arm in this state is simply not an option. A glimmer of hope appears as they recall seeing a medical cabinet nearby. The monster has vanished from sight, likely biding its time just beyond the threshold. Trapped inside, they try to make sense of why the creature refuses to enter. Reviewing the rules reveals the break room is strictly for staff use only. Staff members are required to display their name tags at all times. Without a tag, you are not staff, and guests are strictly outsiders. This makes the break room a sanctuary, a designated shelter from the guests. A doubt lingers, though, as they question why a monster would ever follow rules. The silence that follows is heavy with the weight of that realization. The only answer provided is a single, chilling word. A sudden, ominous development leaves them completely blindsided. Dealing with the guest in room 415 was a clear violation of the rules. And now they're facing the consequences of that mistake firsthand. But the question remains if the guests face penalties when they break the rules too. Everything in this hotel is governed by those absolute and frankly insane rules. Two main theories are on the table, starting with the idea that the entire thing is staged, or maybe it's all real and they've just fallen down a rabbit hole into a nightmare world. That hallway was clearly the entry point, but the strength of that guest did not make any sense. Not to mention the wound on the wrist barely even bled. Something about the situation just does not add up. Alice is still focused on the task, but the kid is barely paying attention. She reminds him that thinking is his job while hers is to support the plan. With a syringe in hand, she keeps the focus on their survival. They have to keep pushing forward if they want to make it out of this place. The adrenaline is fading, but the pressure is still rising. She questions why he ignored her earlier, all while administering another dose of painkillers. He worries about potential traps, but she points out the logic of the rulebook. If something was meant to be a trap, the rules would have warned them. Suddenly, a realization hits him. The pain from the injury has completely vanished. He confirms he's feeling steady enough to keep moving. They're arguing about just bailing out of the game entirely, but the exit is crawling with a monster that could easily take their heads off. He warns her away from the door even though she's confused about which way to go. She insists they should just leave the way they came in. Yet he's eyeing another door and wondering if it'll actually open for them. It's a dead end, but she's already losing her cool, threatening to call the cops and slam anyone who gets in her way. He's getting fed up with her attitude, asking whose side she's even on. The door creaks open, revealing a hidden path, and he realizes that if the guy inside is actually human, he can handle him. They stare at the new opening, both of them visibly shaken by what they're seeing. It's a cryptic setup, but they're already in too deep to turn back. The voice makes it clear the only way out is to clear the missions. No matter what it takes to finish them, they head toward a dark staircase. Realizing this is not just a simple hallway anymore. It's a long, ominous climb into the unknown, leading them straight to another door at the top. They pause, realizing exactly what they are walking into. The realization hits that they are truly stuck in this twisted reality. A notification pings, signaling a room service request from 202. They turn toward the stairs, fully aware of the demand. A device on the floor flickers to life, broadcasting the instructions. The message is clear: room service items are waiting in the central elevator. One of them snaps, fed up with the games and demanding an exit. The guide's previous warning about completing missions resurfaces in their minds. There's no way to quit, so they realize the game only ends when everyone dies. The frustration boils over into a desperate shout for a fight. Calmly, the other suggests saving energy to loot for supplies before heading upstairs. They check the nearby lockers, searching for anything useful to survive. A briefcase is recovered, filled with gear for the trek ahead. Medical supplies are packed away as they prepare for the worst. The stairs creak open, revealing the path to the second floor. With the supplies secured, they steel themselves to keep moving. The risk of encountering a monster upstairs is high, but it is part of the mission. Like rats in a trap, they push forward and unlock the door. They peer around the corner, scanning for any sign of danger. The hallway appears empty for the moment, so they advance with caution. A light flickers overhead, illuminating the silence of the corridor. A cloche sits on the pedestal, the pair hesitating before the mysterious serving. They stare down the cover, the weight of the unknown hanging heavy between them. One reaches out, finding the metal dome surprisingly difficult to lift. Asking if they should even bother, they remain locked in a moment of indecision. The pair shares a look, the tension mounting as they contemplate the contents. Shaking with apprehension, the hesitation becomes impossible to ignore. Asking once more if the seal should be broken, they brace for whatever lies beneath. Deciding against it, the urge to open the tray vanishes as quickly as it came. Explaining the gut feeling that something is off, they decide to leave the mystery be. Moving on, they decide to head for room 202 instead. The long corridor stretches out before them, silent and foreboding. Reaching the target, the heavy double doors stand waiting. Room 202 is locked in their sights. Inside, the group finds a giant statue and a blank tablet, leaving them puzzled by the lack of clear instructions. Wondering if this is even supposed to be a game, they consider just walking out. The silence is shattered as someone starts slamming against the doors from the other side. They exchange a confused look, the sudden intrusion catching them off guard. A desperate voice pleads for help, claiming a monster is lurking outside. Finding the situation finally interesting, the group realizes the staff is now part of the act. One of them reaches for the handle, ready to see what the chaos is all about. A guy is begging for the door to be closed, convinced they are about to die. But the panic is not helping, he's just spinning his wheels in terror. As he scrambles away from the pile of gold, he is desperate for safety. One of the onlookers finds the whole performance hilarious, thinking it's just some intense acting. The fear in the room is palpable as the door starts to creak open, and he is sure the end is near. Two new figures step into view, looking completely unbothered by the chaos. They mock the situation, treating the supposed monster like a joke, while the others wonder who they even are. Before anyone can react, she lunges forward and grabs the guy by his hoodie. Her grip is absolute, locking him down in an instant. She sweeps his leg with clinical precision, cutting off his balance before he even knows what hit him. In one smooth motion, he is launched through the air. The impact is brutal, leaving him gasping for breath on the ground. Everyone else is stunned, one of them shouting in disbelief at the sudden display of judo. She does not hesitate, pinning him down while the rest of the room watches in shock. The remaining witnesses are frozen, caught off guard by how quickly the tide turned. She's not playing around, demanding the exit location while she keeps him firmly under control. He is left struggling and confused, wondering how she managed to overpower him so easily. The other girl tries to intervene, ordering everyone to just stop moving. Tension hangs in the air, leaving her hesitant to do anything else. She suggests they all just calm down, but the guy in the blue suit admits he does not even know who these people are. The girl demands to know who they are, furious about being ambushed in this so-called escape room concept. Her companion is clearly losing it, shouting that they are not listening about the flesh-eating monster outside. And despite her earlier skepticism, she's starting to realize the danger is actually real. But the guy in the blue suit refuses to entertain any more monster talk. The newcomer interrupts them, holding up a bandaged wrist. She points out that the monster is legit and that she warned them it was real. The guy in the blue suit accuses them of pulling a prank to cover their tracks. He claims they have no idea what is happening, but mentions his partner had his head blown off. The girl is fed up with his cryptic nonsense and tells him to shut up. She turns back to the newcomer, demanding to know who he is if he is not part of the staff. He questions whether they are just other participants in this room. The girl confirms they are also playing the game and wonders if multiple teams run the same theme. The newcomer narrows his eyes, scanning them closely. He spots a name tag on one of their outfits. It's clear to him that everyone here is wearing a staff identification tag. He realizes something is off about the entire group. Pointing at the guy in the blue suit, he notes that only one of them is missing a tag. Tension spikes as the realization hits home. The atmosphere turns suffocating as the truth sinks in. Everyone in the room has a staff tag except for that one man. The girl demands to see the name tags that define the start of the game. Confusion hits the guy in blue as he asks what game she's even talking about. A realization dawns on him and he finally puts two and two together. He asks the group if they're just playing through an elaborate escape room scenario. The guy with the red tie turns the question right back on him. He tries to play it off, claiming he's just here to fix an electrical issue. He sarcastically asks if their coworker getting eaten by a monster is the required backstory. The injured boy confirms the nightmare is real, so the guy in blue presses him for details. He describes a creature with a weird face and tentacle-like fingers which does not match the one the others encountered. The group compares notes on where they saw their respective monsters. News that a monster was spotted on the first floor clearly rattles him. Someone checks on the injured boy, noting the severity of his wrist injury. The group observes the wound closely, searching for clues. They figure it's just a disability someone brought into the game, though it finally makes the story interesting. The group discusses whether the escape room setup is actually just a cover. Those three students arrived right after the guy in blue and they're all wearing staff tags. They conclude it's obviously a role-playing game. Outsiders are being dragged into the chaos and the guy in blue is clearly one of them. The students decide that playing along is the only way to keep the game moving. Trusting those players is definitely not on the table, though. The group is weighing three theories about the four strangers they've encountered in this escape room. But while the others talk, the lead keeps a sharp eye on them. The impulse to just beat them all up is real, but they decide to play it safe and clear the mission first. With a strange statue watching over them, the group finally decides to break the ice. They circle up, agreeing that whoever brought up the idea should be the one to start the introductions. The tension is thick as everyone braces for the truth. Everyone goes quiet as the first couple steps forward. Jiangmin kicks things off, mentioning the missing wrist he lost to a monster on the first floor. Yujin follows up, introducing himself simply as his friend. Minju goes next, though she seems a bit confused about whether she's actually a participant here. Yimin introduces himself as their friend and fellow college student. Jinwoo rounds out their group, noting he's never actually seen a monster himself. Finally, Siwon speaks up, visibly nervous as he claims to be here for electrical maintenance. The questioning quickly shifts to the rulebook, which one of the strangers admits to holding. Tensions rise as the group grows impatient, questioning why this kid is acting like he's in charge. He brushes off the criticism, claiming it's just a room service delivery and the new rules are not worth worrying about. Our lead narrows his eyes, clearly sensing something is off. A quick check of the device confirms a bizarre rule against stealing from room 202. The guys look over the massive pile of fake treasure, laughing at how pointless that specific rule seems to be. They decide to just dump the loot and get out while they can, hoping the mission ends there. They hesitate at the door, the weight of the unknown holding them back. But the kid is not buying the silence, convinced a monster is lurking just outside. Desperate to keep them inside, he insists the rules of this place apply to everything. It's a detail they completely missed, but the logic is starting to click. The penalty for breaking a rule is not just for players, but for the monster too, which explains how they survived. They just had to outsmart the mechanics. That realization hits hard and the kid starts to suspect something is seriously wrong. He cannot shake the feeling that they're being manipulated into staying put. This room is way too easy and they're likely being stalled for a reason. If time is a factor, maybe the monster is the consequence of waiting too long, and that's a risk they can't afford to take. They spot a guy tied to a chair, likely the guest they were looking for. Without a clear end condition, they have to figure out if the mission is even done. The best bet is just to clear the room and see what happens next. He steps toward the exit, testing if they can actually walk out of here. With a signal to stay quiet, he carefully opens the door. They hold their breath, bracing for whatever might be waiting on the other side. A heavy tension fills the air as they prepare to face the truth. The door creaks open, revealing the corridor outside. And he steps out, ready to see if they are finally making real progress. The statue is acting up again, and it is definitely not just a coincidence. Our guy notices the shift, and the tension in the room instantly spikes. Something is changing right in front of them, but before they can react, it strikes. Ryu Jinwoo takes a direct, brutal hit and he goes down hard. The rest of the group freezes, realizing that things have gone south in a hurry. Confusion turns to panic as they see who just got leveled. Ryu Jinwoo is out cold on the floor and the situation is already spiraling. They rush to his side, trying to snap him out of it, but he is completely unresponsive. Pain is clearly tearing him apart and the guy is barely holding onto his own mind. His head is reeling as he spirals into a dark, broken state. The statue has not finished its game and it starts to shift again. Everyone notices the movement this time and the realization hits them all at once. That thing is definitely alive and it is staring them down with pure malice. The reality of the situation settles in and they know they're in deep trouble. They're trapped in the room with a monster that does not intend to let them leave. Fear is starting to take root and one of them is already pushed to the edge. Panic is setting in and they have no idea how to handle what's coming next. The statue speaks and it's clear they've crossed a line they can't uncross. It calls them out as thieves and it is ready to collect the price. Now they're backed into a corner and they have absolutely no move left to make. The monster clenches its massive clawed hand in rage, and the air around it turns a deadly shade of crimson. It begins to shift and contort, transforming into something even more predatory. This creature has one goal in mind: to hoard every last bit of treasure for itself. Meanwhile, the survivors realize the exit is sealed, confirming the door is just a trap to keep them inside with the beast. The creature sniffs the air, clearly hunting down the scent of the thieves. It starts gorging on the piles of gold, making it clear that this monster is the ultimate penalty for their greed. The group watches in horror, realizing the beast is tracking them by scent alone. For now, the overwhelming smell of the treasure is masking their presence. But the monster is tearing through the horde at a terrifying speed. Once the gold is gone, they'll be the only thing left on the menu. One of the survivors wonders how their leader can stay so composed, while a teammate panics, begging them to find a way out immediately. Solving the puzzle is their only hope for survival, otherwise they're all just future targets for the beast. The weight of the situation is starting to break them, and the team is visibly losing their grip on reality. And the group decides to just toss the body aside. But the teammate is clearly starting to lose his cool with them, so the order is given to just knock him out if he keeps whining, and Hyojin silences his complaints with a cold, sharp gesture, forcing the guy to back down and keep his mouth shut as the reality of his situation starts to sink in, and he stops the arguing, knowing he is outmatched here, so the group focuses back on the real problem at hand. Because Jinwoo did not just break a rule, he shattered it, and they continue dragging the body toward the growing pile of loot. But the mechanics of the theft do not make any sense, since the guest had nothing on him when he died, and the trigger for the trap remains a complete mystery, only that the moment he leaned out he was marked, as the hotel's absolute rule against stealing comes into play. Meanwhile, the entity is gorging itself on the remaining treasure. And Hyojin drops her necktie, signaling it is time to move, leaving the discarded tie behind as they prepare to exit. Because the door is unlocked, proving their theory is right, so she tells him to strip, leaving him completely stunned. He immediately starts stripping, tossing his clothes out into the hallway. The tie lands outside as a test, proving that throwing things is not the same as taking them. His companion is losing his mind, questioning if this is really the best plan they have. But he remains cold, refusing to take responsibility for anyone else's life. He tells the guy to stay behind if he is scared, because he is done trying to convince him. The guy is clearly rattled, sweating as the reality of their situation sinks in. Another teammate steps in to try and de-escalate, but the mood is already frayed. He admits the guy has a point about the risk, but he's already committed to the move. With a quick motion, he clears the path, clearing the way forward. He shoves the guy out of the way, cutting through the hesitation. There is a simple logic to it, he explains, because you cannot steal treasure if you have nothing on you. They stare at him, struggling to process the sheer audacity of the strategy. He starts undressing, completely unfazed by the questioning look he gets. Still, the guy cannot believe he is actually going through with it. He snaps at him to hurry up because there is no time left to waste. Across the room, a girl is huddled in the corner, shaking and sobbing. She's completely breaking down under the pressure of the room. Someone walks up to her, realizing that her initial approach was probably a mistake. She gets slapped back to reality, getting a sharp wake-up call. There is no time to be dithering, so she needs to pull it together right now. A monstrous presence is hunting them down, demanding to know where the thieves are hiding. The corridor is silent, but the pressure is mounting, and Sanana is forced into an impossible decision. Panic is setting in, but someone screams for her to stop thinking and just react. Survival is the only goal left on the table now. The stakes are confirmed, and there is no room for error. That thing has finally tracked them to their location. A desperate command is shouted to strip away the evidence. Coins scatter as the beast lunges, closing the distance in an instant. The order is repeated, desperate and urgent. Its jaws snap shut, tearing through the space where they stood. They narrowly evade the strike, but the creature is relentless. Desperation takes hold, and a hand reaches out for one final play. The red tie is the key, and it has to be placed perfectly. Gravity shifts as the monster turns its full focus toward the target. It descends with lethal intent, leaving no room to maneuver. Clinging to the threshold, the desperate plan is put into motion. Violating the room's rules by taking the tie comes with a heavy price. The exit is slamming shut and the trap is snapping closed. Total darkness swallows the scene as the beast strikes again. He is left exposed in the void, clutching the only thing that might keep him alive. Seo Jiangmin and the others are covered in blood but alive. A single red item is held up in the dark. It worked, and he realizes they actually survived the ordeal. Relief hits as they confirm they are both still breathing. The group is shaken, but there is no time to waste on shock. They find themselves back in the ominous hotel hallway. Something discarded on the floor suggests just how close they came to dying. The reality of their current state sinks in as they stand soaked in blood. Tensions rise as the group finally tries to piece together what just happened. Petty bickering over etiquette breaks out even while they are still reeling. The mood turns bitter as they argue about a fallen friend. Seo Jiangmin cuts through the noise, demanding to know what the treasure really is. They realize their initial assumption that the gold was the prize was dead wrong. The truth begins to dawn on him. It is a deadly realization that hits home. Silence falls as they stare at the room number 203. The rules were never about the loot, they were about the guests. Some unseen force has been playing a sick game with their lives all along. By connecting the suspicious deaths, a hidden lethal rule comes to light. The realization hits them. Jinwoo's earrings were the treasure that marked him for death. The realization hits them. Jinwoo's earrings were the treasure that marked him for death. His fatal mistake was just leaning into the hallway, crossing that forbidden threshold. The system immediately flagged it as stealing, and the room simply locked him out. But testing the theory with a tie proved the door stayed open just fine. Apparently, stealing requires both the item crossing over and a person actively doing it. The group stands there, processing the grim truth of what just went down. Jinwoo did not lose his life to strength but to a damn technicality in the rules. Crushed by the absurdity, the survivor collapses to the floor in total despair. Tears stream down as the weight of the loss finally settles in. The remaining pair stands nearby, both covered in blood and completely drained. They are forced to move on despite the toll this game is taking. A hand reaches out, grounding the survivor and pulling them back to reality. Comforting them in the aftermath, the others try to keep the group together. It's a silent, heavy moment of support amidst the carnage surrounding them. The survivors exchange words, acknowledging the help that saved them from that room. A brief, quiet recognition passes between them, even through the exhaustion and tears. Still, the social pressure of the game forces them to keep up appearances. They have to maintain their composure even when everything is falling apart inside. One tells the other to play the part and say the right words. The lights dim on the empty hallway, leaving the survivors to their next move. A bloodied name tag sits on the floor, marking a grim discovery. One of the survivors admits he swiped it from a friend's gear, hoping to blend in. An apology follows, but the tension in the hallway remains suffocating. The other guy just wants him to stop acting like a total idiot. That apology did not even come with the usual stutter, which is a weird shift. He demands the man start wearing his own name tag immediately. A blood-soaked survivor sits there, listening to the demands. The guy under the spotlight does not look like he's playing along anymore. He calls out the hypocrisy of someone who claimed not to care if they lived or died. A hand reaches out, grabbing the collar of his shirt. The man in glasses stares back, completely unbothered by the sudden aggression. He reveals he actually did care about keeping Lee Yujin alive all along. The instruction is simple: stop making choices and stop thinking. Survival is the only thing that matters right now. Blood stains his skin, a reminder of how close death has been. Panic finally breaks through as he starts babbling nonsense at the guy in front of him. The listener remains stoic, waiting for the truth to spill out. A terrifying memory surfaces, describing a wrist rotting away and a head blown off. It sounds like a rules enforcer punished them for a slip-up. The realization hits him like a freight train. The name tag was the rule all along. A new rule appears on the wall: staff must wear their name tags to stay safe. The security guard is already hunting, and the pressure is mounting on everyone left. Panic sets in as they realize their previous assumptions were dangerously wrong. He stops in his tracks, finally grasping what the game actually demands from them. The realization lands and he screams out, desperate to make sense of the new requirement. That terrifying entity looms over them again, signaling that the hunt is far from over. Confusion erupts because they have not done anything to trigger this latest surge of aggression. He concludes the guard is the one responsible for the previous death, but the solution seems simple. They scramble to verify their status, terrified by the proximity of the threat. A hand reaches out, desperate to confirm that they are still following the rules. She tries to keep them calm, insisting that they have not violated any protocols yet. The terror is written all over her face, and she cannot stop shaking. Every second feels like a lifetime as she waits for the inevitable judgment. He frantically checks his gear, wondering if just having the tag is enough. Desperation takes over as he points to his tag, shouting that he has it on him. But he cuts him off, reminding everyone that the rule explicitly says to wear it. The distinction between wearing and carrying is the difference between life and death. Hanging the clothes on his body is a gamble, but he needs to know if it counts. He is literally hanging by a thread, hoping the connection is enough to satisfy the rule. The monster descends, ready to deliver a lethal penalty if the interpretation is wrong. The kid begs for mercy, frantically pointing at his name tag as proof of innocence. Trembling, he insists he followed every single rule. A pair of glowing red eyes peers down from the shadows, unimpressed. The name tag is singled out, scrutinized with cold, lethal intent. Those eyes lock onto their target, marking him for deletion. A giant, disfigured hand slowly reaches down toward the floor. Panic ripples through the group as they realize someone is about to be erased. The monstrosity descends, pinning the boy in place with its towering, grotesque form. There is nowhere left to run, and the creature's predatory grin widens. Backed into a corner, the others watch the inevitable play out. A spray of blood coats the floor, marking the start of the cleanup. The boy collapses, his body already failing under the pressure of the penalty. Another student stares in horror, pressed against the wall as the slaughter begins. Two more survivors huddle together, praying they are not next on the list. The behemoth looms over its prey, a massive hand sealing the victim's fate. It does not take long for the creature to clamp down with crushing force. A final choked sound escapes as the giant maw snaps shut. Everything goes dark as the beast claims its prize. Flesh and bone are pulverized instantly under the weight of that palm. Silence returns to the hallway, leaving nothing but a stain where a person used to be. The group is left bloodied and exhausted, with the command to eat ringing in their ears. Nausea takes hold as they struggle to process the carnage they just survived. A moment of stillness settles over the survivors, but the weight of their situation remains heavy. A rift tears open above them, a pulsating red anomaly in the ceiling, and it begins to shift and twist, leaving behind nothing but an ominous glow as it vanishes. With the threat gone, confusion replaces the immediate terror. A digital screen flickers to life, detailing new rules for the staff: maintain hygiene at the showers, find them near the break room, and whatever they do, never look back while in that hallway. The break room seems like the only logical next step, though the path forward is dark and unsettling. A single doorway stands at the end of the stairs, bathed in a strange light. Stepping through reveals a passage that feels wrong, and the physical toll of their ordeal is clearly starting to break them. They warn each other to stay away from the hallway, pointing out that a monster is waiting out there, a reminder of the nightmare they barely escaped. Specifically, that twisted woman with her head flipped upside down. The realization of the danger they are in hits them, and the atmosphere grows heavy with the silence of their predicament. They start questioning the absurdity of these staff rules, hoping the showers might at least offer them a change of clothes. Between the blood and the chaos, she can't stop thinking about her dog, Toto. Honestly, the little guy probably would have just tried to play with the monsters anyway. She promises him a mountain of treats, but the silence from the others says it all. Someone breaks the heavy quiet and finally demands some focus. They realize there's a new protocol for every decision they make from here on out. Voting by majority is the only way forward, so they might as well get used to it. The hallways look just as grim as ever, leading them straight back to the scene of the crime. Room 202 is waiting for them, completely drenched in evidence of what went down. A massive pool of blood has spilled out from under the door, marking the spot. Whatever was inside did not just die, it was completely shredded to pieces. The reality of the situation flickers before them like a glitch in the system. It's not just a mess, it's a body left in a state that's hard to even process. The sheer brutality of the scene is enough to make anyone lose their nerve. A horrific, distorted creature looms over the remains, grinning like it owns the place. That thing is literally picking through what's left of the victim. The room is filled with gold, but the only thing that matters is the corpse lying there. Someone's hands are folded in a final, quiet repose amidst the treasure. A lingering, nervous touch suggests that someone is still holding onto a shred of humanity here. The long, dark corridor stretches out, offering no exit from this nightmare. All they can do now is head toward the staff break room and hope for a lead. The group is finally catching their breath, but the tension in the room is thick. Everyone's looking for a way forward, so a proposal hits the table. The idea is simple: start making group decisions by majority vote. But the suggestion does not exactly get an enthusiastic response. Since they are in this mess together, the logic seems pretty sound to most of them. Yeomin is not buying it, though, pointing out that history is full of bad majority choices. Survival is not a popularity contest, and they definitely do not have time for a town hall meeting. He cuts straight to the chase. Nobody wants to die just because they followed the crowd. The pushback is immediate, with the others clearly frustrated by his rigid stance. Yeomin doubles down, flatly refusing to gamble his life on a group consensus. The frustration is boiling over, leaving the group wondering what his deal even is. Unexpectedly, someone else steps up to back his play, because let's be real, they are only still breathing thanks to his judgment calls. Silence falls over the room as the reality of their situation sinks in. The group is split and the atmosphere is getting heavy. Yujin starts to probe further, testing the limits of this new dynamic. She calls him out, asking if he'd really let her make a fatal mistake, but he is not about to give her the simple answer she's looking for. She catches the hesitation in his eyes, and it says more than words ever could. Calling him out on his bluff, she makes it clear he is not as detached as he pretends to be. The group decides to push forward despite the carnage, focusing on the immediate objective. Putting their plans to debate on ice for now, they prioritize movement over talk. The decision is made to keep pressing ahead, shelving any further discussion for later. Finding the entrance, they identify the door to the showers. Recalling the vague rules of the game, they realize that anything could happen once they step through. With some hesitation, he finally reaches for the handle to open the door. A dark, narrow hallway stretches out before them, completely swallowed by shadows. Confirming their path, they prepare to traverse the corridor. To navigate the darkness safely, they decide to move single file with hands on shoulders. The group links up in a chain to maintain contact as they venture into the gloom. They start moving in unison, their footsteps echoing through the silence. The hallway feels endless, dragging on far longer than they anticipated. Nerves begin to fray as the cramped, suffocating atmosphere weighs on them. Regret starts to sink in, with him wishing he had never skipped class to end up in this situation. Suddenly, the hand he was holding onto slips away from his reach. He reaches out into the void but finds nothing but empty air. A jolt of confusion hits him as he realizes he is no longer connected to the others. The person in front of him has completely vanished into the dark. Panic sets in as he calls out, demanding to know where everyone went. Left all alone in the pitch black, he desperately screams for anyone to answer him. Desperate for an answer, he demands to know why it's so quiet. Then the wall sconces flicker, suddenly flooding the hallway with light. Blinded by the brightness, he realizes he is not alone anymore. A dark silhouette blocks the hallway, standing perfectly still at the far end. Demanding to know who it is, he realizes the silence has become even more suffocating. Pacing and sweating, he wonders why nobody is responding to him. Staring at the figure, he questions if that thing is even human. It starts to move, closing the distance with heavy, deliberate steps. Realizing it is heading straight for him, he panics, screaming for the stranger to keep their distance. Every step the figure takes echoes through the hall, as it looms closer like something out of a horror movie. Paralyzed by the realization that he is trapped, he searches for a way out. Thinking fast, he remembers the layout and tries to regain his composure. He decides to bolt, aiming for the staff break room since guests are not allowed inside. Sprinting for his life, he prays that sanctuary is actually safe. A heavy silhouette moves through the dark, shrouded in an ominous, swirling presence. The figure continues his steady, deliberate advance toward the target. Nothing seems to slow his pace as he closes the remaining distance. Step by agonizing step, the shadow finally enters the light, and just like that, the mask drops to reveal the face behind the threat.